All right, so some of this goes into a little bit of geeky stuff, but the basics are, okay, we know we need protein, obviously. There's been some really good research, and actually by one guy that was on the panel that actually recommended the intake of protein in the United States. And he's done some research on if you look at the typical food pyramid we see that we're supposed to eat. Now, they did the research on the food pyramid that looked at, basically the recommendation is you should eat between 10 and 15% of your diet as protein. All right, now if you eat 10 to 15% of your diet as protein, because of the nutrients that are in those proteins, you're going to be deficient. So the recommendations themselves are actually been shown to make people deficient in nutrients that are found in protein. So we know we need more protein than these recommendations say. So how much? So for someone who's active, so whether that's an endurance sport, which is slightly less, but it's so much less, it makes no difference. But if they're seriously exercising pretty hard, 3 days a week at least, then you go for at least 1.6 grams per kilo of body weight of protein. Now, most people, including myself, I'm just giving you what exactly the research says, the best research says. Now, I would say because you've got a bell curve where there's people at the end of the spectrum that need a little bit more, and there's people at the other end that need a little bit less. Because there's some people on this end, and because there's no negative effect of having more protein, I usually just say 2 grams per kilo. And if I'm in the States, because people go, what the hell is a kilo? I'll say 1 gram per pound, because a pound, 2.2 pounds is a kilo pretty much. So again, I talked about protein. You know, people think about it just for bodybuilders who want to build muscle. For everyone who exercises hard, it's good for muscle repair and recovery, so they recover faster between sessions, so they can put more effort into each session because they recovered from the last session, right? But there's also for dieting. We talked about it making you feel more full. There's also more research to show that it also increases the metabolism, things I'll get into a bit later. We'll look at the serving size and how much you should have post-workout. We'll look at what about leucine? It's an amino acid for some of the slightly more geeky people that may know a little more about nutrition. Leucine is the most important amino acid in protein to help you build muscle, to trigger the muscle building response. And we'll talk about general timing of when you should have your protein. So protein functions, basically protein makes muscle, once you take the water out, is virtually made of protein. Your hormones are made of proteins. Your enzymes are made of proteins. Your blood cells are made of proteins. And a small amount of protein is used for energy, especially if you're on a low-carb, high-protein diet. Your body uses a little bit more of it, but it's not so much an energy source for most types of exercise in most scenarios. So for weight loss, we talked about the protein keeping you full. And even Marks and Spencer has a fuller, longer range. And the only reason they can make the claim that keeps you fuller longer is because there's very good research to show higher protein diets keep you fuller longer. They wouldn't, Marks and Spencer's would have been caught by the regulators and told to stop saying that if it weren't a scientific fact. And believe me, you have to do a lot these days to make the European Union believe that some kind of claim about nutrition is a scientific fact. They reject basically every claim, no matter how well backed. Protein basically does something called, it increases something called DIT. DIT is dietary induced thermogenesis. Now, that sounds complicated. All it means is it makes your body burn off excess calories as heat. So for every gram of protein you eat, if you ate a similar amount of carbs or a similar amount of fat, so the same calories from fat or the same calories from carbs, you would have 25% more energy left over for your body to store as fat from the carbs or the fat. So what I'm trying to say is when you eat protein, 25% of the calories you eat from protein get burnt up, and they're not available anymore. So essentially, they're not available to your metabolism, so you can't store those extra calories as fat. So protein is literally 1/4 free calories, and that's why when researchers, and they've done this, I started seeing the first studies on higher protein diets and weight loss and fat loss 20 years ago, well, almost 20 years ago, in 1999 at some of the conferences in the States, and the research just got stronger and stronger and stronger. And knowing nutrition and dietetics and government agencies like I do, I knew it would take years, and it still hasn't really caught on. A lot of these ideas, these should be everyone that is a nutrition professional, or even people that know a little about nutrition. Any doctor should know this stuff already, and it should be out there, but it isn't out there. So protein's basically free calories. So we've got an obesity epidemic all over the world. and doctors don't know this stuff. All right, so, and they're still not sure about high protein diets. High protein diets aren't a trend. They aren't going away because they work. The research is very clear. Even the guy that was the head of the World Obesity Forum of the World Health Organization said, and this is like 8 years ago, said that if you replace other calories in the diet with protein, you get weight loss, even if calorie intake is the same. So that's just, everyone that really knows their stuff already knows that, but unfortunately, not too many people have had the message yet. Also, as you're dieting, the third advantage of protein, after keeping you fuller longer and being free calories, is it basically preserves muscle when you're dieting. So obviously, if you have more muscle from a weight loss perspective as you're dieting, you have a bigger engine, which needs more fuel. So you'll be routinely burning more calories every day. You'll be able to eat more and still not gain weight or be able to lose more weight, right? So it preserves muscle. Obviously really important for bodybuilders, but also important for anyone routine gym goer that wants to lose fat. When you eat protein before you exercise, so in like the 2 hours before exercise, 1 hour before exercise, if you have a protein, and probably something like whey protein is best because it's quickly absorbed and it's not going to be sitting there in your stomach. You don't want to have a burger before you work out. You burn more calories during that exercise and after that exercise if you have protein before it. All right, so a lot of people do cardio on an empty stomach. That's the big trend these days. Or, well, for years it has been. And actually, they did some research to show what are you better off doing, empty stomach cardio or just some protein? Well, the protein helps you burn more calories. Also, there's a theory, not proven, but that because you got protein and amino acids flowing through the circulation, because you've had protein, your body won't break down as much tissue, as much muscle tissue that you want to keep. So that might be an advantage also. That Arnie Astrup, that's the guy from the World Health Organization I was talking about, who made that statement about protein being better for weight loss. So dosage, people talk about how much protein do I need. So we're going to talk about some myths about this in a minute, but first of all, I'll just say, when they did studies, first of all, I'll talk about how protein works. Protein's obviously, your muscle's made of protein. It's very simple. You want to make the balance of protein in your body either neutral, so you don't lose muscle, or positive. So at any given time, your muscles are breaking down and building up. If you don't have enough protein in your diet, more breakdown will occur than buildup, and you have muscle loss. And the way protein works when you take it, when you eat it, is when the amino acids get broken, when the protein gets broken down in your gut to amino acids, and you absorb those amino acids, your body builds them back up, and it needs a certain concentration of those amino acids to trigger the response, the muscle building response. So that's why whey protein works so well. It's absorbed so quickly that it has this higher concentration of amino acids, and that's the signal to your body to increase the protein synthesis, which is the way the body builds muscle. So that's how it works. Now, when they did studies on egg, and egg's one of the highest quality proteins you can have, so it triggers this response almost as much as any other protein. They found that when they gave people 0, 5, 10, 20, or 40 grams of egg protein, they got the highest response with 20 grams. So 20 and 40 grams got the same response. So in the subjects they used, 20 grams is basically the same response as 40. So we know we need at least 20 grams of protein. Other studies suggest a little more might be better, and this study suggests a little more might be better, but there wasn't a significant difference. But when they did other studies in whey protein, and whey protein is a slightly better quality protein than eggs, so it increases protein synthesis slightly more, they found that 40 grams of protein was 40% better than 20 grams of protein. So it comes down to somewhere between 20 and 40 grams is probably the best amount, probably after a really heavy workout, or someone that's very large, or someone that's training really hard. I would lean towards 40. If it's someone who's quite small, females have less muscle mass per kilo of body weight, so they'll probably need even less, so more like 20. Again though, people tend to think of protein as, oh, what's the minimum I can get away with? Why would you think about what's the minimum I can get away with when protein keeps you fuller longer, helps you preserve muscle, there are no negative side effects, and I don't know why people always think of protein as how little can I get away with. You should be thinking, what's the ideal amount I should take for my goals? So in older men, this study was in older men. Now there's quite a bit of research that suggests that for your older clients, they need fewer servings, so less often, but larger amounts of protein. So there's some evidence that the response to protein intake in older people, when you get 45, 50 or older, they need larger dosages. So if you got someone older, they need to go much closer to this 40-gram level to maximize this protein synthesis response. So leucine, we talked about, this is a bit geeky, so I'll go through it quickly, but leucine's the amino acid, and proteins are made of chains of amino acids, and one of the amino acids we need, if we don't get enough of, we perish eventually, is leucine. So leucine is the thing that turns on this muscle building response more than any other amino acid. It's the one that stimulates this pathway called mTOR, some of you might have heard of. But when it comes to resistance training and steroids, that's the mechanism. It's training itself and as anabolic steroids, so that it works in the same way. So I'm not saying if you take enough leucine it'll work like exercise without exercising, or with like steroids without, but it has the same, it works the same pathway. So studies show you need a certain minimum amount of leucine, and when they gave people 3.5 grams of it versus about 2 grams, they got a third better response in muscle building activity. When it came to when they gave people 10 grams of these, EAA just means essential amino acids. So essential amino acids, basically every protein has about 20 amino acids that your body uses. It only needs 8 of those amino acids, and those ones are essential. It can make the other amino acids itself. And studies have shown you only need the essential amino acids in your diet. You don't need the other ones because your body's really efficient at making the other amino acids out of those essential amino acids. So, and one of the essential amino acids, not surprisingly, is leucine. Have we heard? Most people heard about branched chain amino acids, BCAAs? It's a really popular supplement. Leucine is one of the BCAAs, and it's probably the reason why BCAAs work, because the other 2 BCAAs are just other essential amino acids. So when they gave people 10 grams of essential amino acids with the 2 grams or the 3.5 grams of leucine, they got the better response. But then if you have adequate essential amino acids in the body, some other studies have shown you only need not even a whole gram, 0.75 grams of leucine post-workout to get the best response. So I won't go into this other complicated stuff, but, just about how the study was set up. But basically what you need to know is that leucine is really important, but if you get enough of these, if you get a protein with the essential amino acids like whey protein, you don't need much extra leucine. And if you got essential amino acids, you don't need much extra leucine. So yeah, I won't go into the details of that because it gets a bit too involved. So protein dosages. There are more studies, but whey protein alone, post-workout, maybe is probably all you need, like as far as it'll give you all the essential amino acids you need, so you don't need anything else beyond that. You can add some leucine to it for a slightly better effect. Some studies have shown a slightly better effect when you add leucine to that. Now whey protein already is 50%, it's made up of, it has the highest concentration is essential amino acids. 50% of whey protein, the amino acids in whey protein is already essential amino acids. Probably why whey protein is the most effective protein for muscles. And whey protein is 11% leucine, so it's already got over 1/10 of it is already leucine. So that's another reason it works so well. So we talked about the amino acid profile. That just means which amino acids it has, the essential aminos. It has the highest BV, so that's biological value. And there's other ways of evaluating a protein quality, protein-derived corrected amino acid score, and there's another one that's a new one, digestible indispensable amino acid score. But no matter which way you look at it, protein when it comes to muscle building and muscle repair, a fast response in muscle building and muscle repair. And again, that's partly because it's the fastest absorbed protein. It gets the concentration of amino acids in your blood up really quickly. It's also, if I had to say, if you said, what's whey protein best for? Supporting health or supporting muscle building? I'd say it's for supporting health. It's so underrated. Everyone seems to think the tree hugger proteins like soy and pea protein, just because they're from plants, I guess, I don't know, or because there's been good marketing going on, but whey protein has far more research to show that it's better for you than the other proteins. Increases something called glutathione. Glutathione's that your body's most powerful antioxidant, decreases damage to cells, and it protects the liver. It increases satiety, so it keeps you fuller longer, even more than most normal proteins. Increases immunity and protects the liver. So a lot of people, protein's just got a bad rap somehow, and people think, but we'll get into some myths about that anyhow. I'll get to that in a bit. So other proteins, so you talk about whey protein, you definitely want whey protein in just about any supplement for athletes, right? But there's no problem with adding things like casein, micellar casein. Casein is just the other protein from milk. So if you take all the protein out of milk, 80% of that protein will be casein, and 20% of that protein will be whey. All right, so it's just the other milk protein. Now, they work very differently. I think Mother Nature probably designed milk, and incidentally, in human breast milk, it's more like 40 or 50% whey and 50 or 60% casein. So humans seem to have a higher requirements for whey protein than cows do. So. The good thing about casein is whey protein is very fast. Casein sits in the stomach and it trickles the amino acids in your body over a long time. So I think Mother Nature probably wanted a child to have the benefit of a quick burst of amino acids to build tissue and grow, and a long, slowly trickling out delivery of amino acids. So if they weren't fed again for several hours, the child wouldn't starve and it would have available protein in the system, right? So it's like you got the quick release and the time release. So Mother Nature's pretty clever at this stuff. When you see something called milk protein concentrate or milk protein isolate, all that is the 80%, 20%, 80% casein, 20% whey. So it's basically a whey and casein mix, sometimes called micellar casein. Egg, we know what egg is. That's another high quality protein, almost as high quality as the whey. There's soy, and recently the fastest growing proteins right now are adding pea protein and adding rice protein and hemp protein. So the really tree huggery kind of like sandal wearing proteins are the fastest growing ones right now, and they're quite good especially if you combine them. If you combine the pea protein with the rice protein, you get they make up for what each one makes up for what the other one lacks as far as the amino acid profile. So they're good to combine. So that basically, so with casein, the good thing about adding casein or micellar casein to a protein product is if you're taking it before bed where you're not going to eat anything for a while, you're getting that constant delivery of amino acids. If you're not going to eat for several hours, it's good to have one of these slower proteins included in your protein product. So protein myths. Now, there's this myth been going around forever that your body can only absorb 30 grams of protein. This, doesn't even make sense from a physiological perspective, because your body absorbs all of the, unless you've got a health issue, your body absorbs all of the high quality protein you give it. Now, if you get some protein that has a lot of different fibers included with it, like if you take pea protein that hasn't been well processed, it'll have a lot of these fibers and anti-nutrients, and they prevent you absorbing food. But when we talk about animal proteins, meat, eggs, whey protein, your body absorbs 100% of that, well, 98, 99% of it, so it all gets absorbed. So this 30-gram absorption is a myth. And I think what people mean when they say, how much protein can I absorb, I don't think they actually mean how much you can absorb, because you can absorb all of it. But it's how much you retain. Because your body's not going to retain. If every time you ate 30 grams of protein, your body kept all those 30 grams of protein, there'd be guys walking around here that wouldn't fit in the door. They wouldn't fit in the building eventually. Because your body, 30 grams of protein 5 times a day for 100 days, I don't know, I haven't done the maths, but if you add that up, after a while, that person's not fitting through the door. So it's how much you retain. Now, some people say, God, if you only retain a tiny amount of say, your 30 grams of protein, why do you need 30 grams of protein? Why can't you just have 1 gram? Well, it's exactly what I explained several slides ago when I said, when you have a higher dosage or a fast protein like whey, it's that concentration, the high concentration of amino acids, that flicks the trigger of protein synthesis, the activity that builds muscle. So you only get that activity at the optimum rate if you have enough protein. I don't know why Mother Nature designed us that way. We'd be a lot more efficient if we could be like, like cows and have a tiny bit of, grass and we turn into protein, or we just needed a gram of protein a day. That'd be great. But unfortunately, that's not the way we're designed. And I wish I could explain why. Can't take. Okay, yes, you can't take whey protein with milk. Some people think when you mix whey protein with milk in a shaker, it might slow down the absorption of the protein. It doesn't, because whey protein and casein are designed, like I said, by Mother Nature, to work together. So the casein, when it hits the acid of the stomach, forms a clot, and it slowly breaks down. That's why it's time released. And the whey protein just is in the liquid phase that goes right around it, right into the intestine, and gets absorbed very quickly. So you can mix whey protein with milk. Now, of course, if you mix it with milk, say a cup of milk, that's 12 extra grams of carbs, lactose, and it's however many extra grams of fat, depending on what kind of milk you're using, low-fat milk, full-fat milk, whatever. But so you obviously have to account for those calories. But some people like a creamier texture, and if you mix it with milk, it tastes better. So if they're on a high-calorie diet, trying to gain muscle, or it's a young guy who burns a lot of calories, mix it with milk if he likes it better, no problem. High protein intake damages the kidneys. There's never been any research to even suggest this in living humans. Now, some people have kidney problems. You should always have a questionnaire anyhow before you train someone, and part of that questionnaire should talk about, do you have any health issues, and you'd probably be well advised to say, do you have any kidney issues? If they have kidney issues, their doctor will already have, if their kidney disease has progressed to a certain stage, then yes, they won't be able to handle as much protein. That could be dangerous, and their doctor will have already discussed that with them. So you have to work with them, and obviously doctor's rules come first. And I would always work either with the doctor or defer to whatever the doctor tells the patient, and then I'd never contradict the doctor's suggestion. I'd obviously a lot of times have people go back to their doctor and say, why this, why that? Maybe give them a couple of research papers to say, actually, why are you giving that recommendation? Because in some cases they give kidney patients more protein precisely because it gives their kidneys the raw material to regenerate. So it all depends on the stage of their kidney disease as to whether they should be taking more or less protein. So that's important. But if in a healthy human, there's never been any evidence to show that protein intake damages the kidneys. So that's a complete myth.